Well, today my goal is to discuss our careers, our job titles that will change, but I want to inspire everybody with regards to the future that we've got and how amazing AI really is. But this session is not about AI. It's about more than that. It's actually about the impact that AI has on our jobs and the way we do things. And I want to take you on a journey that I've had in the past 7 years with my teams, because I'm quite a controversial guy in the banking in South Africa, because I've made a couple of serious changes on how we do things and how things are done in a highly regulated environment. But first, a few things about myself. I'm an entrepreneur. I started my first business when I was in high school. As an entrepreneur, I had businesses in a variety of arenas, from a paint shop, a general dealer. I had a liquor shop, um, up to online marketing business that I had as well. I started my IT career in 1996. So I'm an old person, if you like, in my 50s. And when I learned software back then, and you probably want to go and Google this one, I started with Fox Pro 2.6. That was a original Microsoft um, language. It wasn't visual, so it was coding flat out. And later I moved on to Visual Basic 5 and .NET. I actually wrote my last piece of code, and that was back in 2008. So 16 years ago. I was the creator and also the lecturer of the Practical Risk-Based Approach course, which was presented by the University of Pretoria. And it was even presented to the regulator in 2019 and 2020. In the past 15 years, I've been a senior project manager, the big swear word in Agile, and program manager. And for the past 12 years, I specialized in banking specifically. I'm the founder and creator of Entinology certification, and that's a system which I've been using for the past 7 years. I've introduced XP successfully in a regulated environment, which I'm very proud of. And I was one of the first PMs to successfully introduce TDD into a highly regulated environment. And to be honest, that's the banking environment in South Africa. I'm a keynote speaker and consultant who helps businesses navigate the new approach of getting projects delivered with entrepreneurial project management and AI. Right. So with that in mind, you kind of know who I am. I want to take you on a journey. Everybody has a laptop and that has a computer uses a mouse. I want to take you on this journey of the history of a computer mouse. And the computer mouse is very interesting because it was developed uh, actually in 1963 by Douglas Engelbart. And through the years, the mouse has undergone all these kind of improvements. So it was a mouse that was improved. And the video that's flashing in front of you gives you an idea of everything it's gone through. And I want you to wait for the mouse that works on the finger. That's very, very interesting. You can watch how it transitioned up to the point of what we have today. But while you're watching that, I want you to listen about a couple of points that's very important when it comes to AI. First of all, AI can never have empathy and emotional connections. AI can simulate, but it can't have it. And that's a benefit human entrepreneurs do have. Human entrepreneurs, we can connect with customers, employees, and partners on an emotional level. And that's very important to build loyalty, understand customer needs, and motivating your teams that work in your organization. Secondly, AI lack moral and ethical judgment. While AI can follow ethical guidelines that's programmed into it, it cannot make moral decisions based on a conscience or social norms or anything like that. It can't really evolve beyond its program. Third, AI is not creative. So the true creativity, it doesn't have that. It doesn't have the out of the box thinking that you need when you need to innovate. AI can generate ideas based on its existing data, the point of reference that it has, but it can't really do it itself. The fourth, it can't have physical experience and intuition. Humans, we've got senses, we can smell, hear, and see, and all those things, but AI cannot do that. So it can't really take decisions based on anything physical that they experience. It can't really do complex social negotiations either. I'm not going to even expand on that. I mean, you can think for yourself. It can't read body language. It can't pick up a tone. Can't build relationships. Those are uniquely human. And a very important point is it doesn't have visionary leadership. Leaders inspire with vision. We create passion, charisma, elements that we genuinely say AI can't really replicate that. Now, understanding the smaller changes like nuances, AI really struggle with that. And that's, again, something that's unique to humans. Cultural and social adaptation can't do that. Personal experience and storytelling, it cannot do that. It can do it only if it's programmed to do so. Right. So that is as far as what AI can do, cannot do. So it's important to have that as a foundation, because where I'm going with this whole session is what we need to do, not what AI needs to do. So let's have a look at historically how we work when we land projects at the moment. With the history of a mouse and quick discussion of what AI cannot do that you have just experienced, let's have a look at how business is done today to execute initiatives. At this point, I would like to urge you to read my book, Why Agile Transformation is Failing at Scale. Now, John, I know you read it and will understand why I say this. The book reveals for the first time how large corporations bring complexity in terms of risk management and this whole bureaucracy that makes delivery very difficult. To add insult to injury, it is also shocking to see that several institutions have done research to a point that it pointed out that 80% of digital projects fail. And if you don't believe me, you can go and read up on Innosight and the Rand Corporation. They did a lot of research on this. 80% of digital projects fail. So with that in mind, let's tackle the current project execution model and explore how it works and also why it must change. The current model of failing because it is designed around a model of management and control. As a PM, I used to have this line in my MSP. I remember it so well. All the managers, they were allocated a single line called management and control. All their cost was allocated to that. MSP, Microsoft's projects. The original model for the waterfall, or the way that we do this in the bureaucracy, had this flow that you can see on your screen right now, which is the current state analysis, etc. But this model required a lot of analysis and detailed planning before budgets are approved. So you had a whole bunch of analysis that happens, and it's probably something you can relate to as I explain it and talk about it. And then you went for a business case approval, and you got your funding, then you need to set up your project, and boom, Bob's your uncle, there you go. Now, you can already pick up why that's a problem, because you didn't even know who you were doing the planning for. So now you're employing senior project people, let's say a senior developer, maybe two of them. The one develops the same piece of code in an hour that the other one is doing in 8 hours. So you already have a 70% discrepancy on your time and your duration. Anyway, since 2016, I've used the multi-methodology model. So all the projects that I landed, and that was at organizations like a Mutual Standard Bank, ABSA and NetBank, I used multi-methodologies. I used Kanban, I used Scrum, I used Waterfall, whatever their governance required. And in the last 5 years, it was within a safe environment. And I want you to remember that I've worked in a safe environment, because later I'm going to bring up safe. And you might think, that's interesting. I've even used Scrum and Kanban in regulatory projects. One of the programs I ran, I had 12 countries where I used a waterfall plan overall, but for certain tactical releases and certain strategic parts of the projects, I would use different methodologies. In tactical, I used Scrum, and in some cases, XP. So, in the process, I accidentally stumbled upon a way of improving planning by as much as 80%. My accuracy was dead on when it came on the planning cycle. So you're going to see later how I do that, and that will hopefully make sense for you and excite you a little bit. But there are many challenges we still had to face in this whole bureaucracy of large corporates. If you read my book, you'll understand why that bureaucracy exists and why they do things the way they do, because it is necessary. Right. It's not as if organizations do not know what they have to change. That's also an interesting thing. It's just, how do you do that? So in order to make things work, organizations have adopted all kinds of methodologies, like Scrum and Safe, but they would stick to those specific methodologies or roll out a hybrid methodology to get things done. Now, Agile was designed to be faster, iterative delivery. Yet, at scale, it introduced expensive training, many new roles, many new ceremonies, and so forth. In fact, with the introduction of SAFe, this became even more complex as it introduced the most complex project methodology in the world. It requires a number of additional expensive certifications. It's not versatile. In fact, more than 10 new ceremonies, and between 8 and 11, depending on the scale, new roles. On top of that, it also enforces 1.5 to 2 months of planning, where no work is done, and the momentum any team had is immediately stopped. I want you to note the momentum part. I'd like to take you on another journey. At one point in time, humans traveled where they wanted to go by walking. At some stage, someone decided, let's try and buffalo skin on our feet and see if it makes the walk easier. And the shoe was invented. Somewhere around 3,500 years BC, someone decided it's a cool idea to jump on a horse and see how long they can stay on it. I firmly believe that's why even today men can do really stupid things. I can already see it. Hey, Bruce, hold my beer. And later someone decided it's a great idea to put a rope in the horse's mouth. And much later, someone decided to build a carriage and hook the carriage up to the horse, and boom, the next step was born. But never, not once, was there existing data for that which happened. Okay, this is important. Not once was there a point of reference which would make AI or enable AI to come up with these solutions. It took some crazy creative moron to decide to get on a carriage pulled by a horse. Did he have any idea what a car was? No. Could AI have done all this? Certainly no. Why is that? Because AI doesn't have emotions. Emotions involves a highly complex biochemical process, something AI don't have. moral reasoning, creativity. AI doesn't experience the world like we do. It processes data. That's all it does. Social cues and the ability to adapt to emotions. Can't do that. Very important. It lacks leadership capability. You can't inspire people to do stuff. Like Bruce, hold my beer. And next time Bruce is inspired, he wants to do it too. Humans use a lifetime of experiences to understand context and something AI cannot do. But there's a lot of things AI is much better than us doing. And that is anything that is data related, routine, etc. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Right. This stage, I just want to quickly check, is there anyone that has notes or asking questions? Nobody. All right, cool. So let's dive into AI a little bit. In front of you, you see a ChatGPT prompt, and it's very simple. It's plain. I didn't want to make it a complicated prompt. But if you look at it, it says simply, create a picture of a car that is also capable of floating in water. Now, the first question I want to ask is there data? Is there existing data for what I'm asking you to do? And the answer is yes. So let's have a look at what that looks like. So at the current moment, you can find these on the internet. The data exists. Okay, so there is data and there is a point of reference. But here's the funny thing about AI. AI is like a literal genie. You know, when you ask a genie something, those funny, okay, you can see the comic strip in front of you. You ask something and you get it, but it wasn't what you intended or you wanted. And it's very important that you note this specific thing that AI does. So let's look at the result we got from that query. It's a cool looking car. In fact, might even go for an aeroplane. But is it functional? No. Because if you look at the wheels, what makes this car float? A car can't drive on a road with square blocks under its wheels. It's like ChatGPT is more obsessed with being cool than practical. Or is it? The doors opening like that means that when you're in a parking area, you probably need wider parking. It's not folding in like your modern cars. Again, data that exists. And what material is that wheels made of? Looks like plastic. I have so many questions. But what if we change the prompt a little bit and we make a prompt that's more applicable to actually building a car? So I gave a little bit more detail. I said, create a detailed blueprint of an EV car, so electrical vehicle. And I gave all the information that I could think might lead me to some proper blueprint. And this is the result I got. Now, if we look at the prompt, you'll see there, headlight that is green. Okay, remember that? It made the entire picture green. I'll ask for a blueprint. This is what it should look like, more or less. Again, data that exists. So I decided I'm going to change the E's to a R. Headlights that are green. I was hoping that it will trick it in believing the headlights must be green. And this is what it produced. So what you can see, it's interesting how AI works. And it's important to note this. The one thing that's very controversial about AI is, what does our future look like with AI? Now, on the top left, you can see a building. That building is in South Africa. It's called UNISA. It's the University of South Africa. I'm afraid that some people make the statement of stating that it's their opinion that a degree is a waste of time for the future. They feel that AI already have all the theoretical knowledge in the world. You can access it today on your smartphone. So go and study for 3 to 7 years is literally a waste of time. And besides that, at the speed of the current innovation, that which you were learning is already old by the time you come out of university. It's interesting to note that even Elon Musk does not look at qualifications when he's employing people. He wants experience and skill amongst many. Personally, I believe that education will change to ensure that people can use AI, but the real value for the times we are in will be experience and the creativity. So if you want to use AI, you need to be able to distinguish between the green car and the green mapped car for Blueprint, to realize that neither of those are the actual solutions. You need that experience and creativity. And it will be in that order. We need to know we use AI and if it actually delivered value. So I think that's where education will move towards a general knowledge as well as how to use AI properly. We also need to have the ability to foresee certain risks and issues that might arise when we apply what the AI tools help us with. So it's very vital that you understand that there's a human element that's needed for the future, and our careers is not going to be threatened by replacement. It's going to be threatened by the fact that our job roles have changed. Another example of this is the old days. I've actually written an article about it on LinkedIn about how they sold ice in the 1600s. They used to go to these ice lakes and cut the ice with saws, take it to an ice house, and then they would put it in containers with wood dust, etc., and ship it abroad to the different exotic islands. That's how it worked back then. Today, you've got a little ice machine. It makes ice for you, produces the ice for you. So that gives you an idea of what I'm trying to explain to you. There's no longer ice cutters needed, but there's people making ice machines. There's people designing and innovating ice machines. So just like their jobs have changed, now ours will change as well. AI is not replacing us as humans, but we definitely need to change. Our future is innovating. With the support of AI, it's innovating at insane speeds. From AI robots and self-driving cars, which you can see on the video, you can do everything, create it, whatever the product is, in a factory by robots. And then you can even take it to the doorstep with a self-driving vehicle and a robot. That is our future right now. It's not nearby future, it's already there. How about robot manned spaceships being sent to asteroids to mine for rare metals? I don't know if you've ever read up on it. It's insane how much rare metals is on all these asteroids, and maybe metals we've never even had on Earth. You know, it can be really special. But everything you can think of, gold, platinum, etc., they actually have a hell of a lot more metals on those asteroids than we have on Earth. How about sending a robot with a spaceship there? So the whole thing about this whole AI thing is that we need to start focusing on that which AI cannot do in the future. And that will be leadership, inventions, entrepreneurship, and innovation. But there's a problem. Over the past 7 years, my squads ended up in situations where complex software development was fast-tracked using AI. We did core banking software with AI. Core banking, I mean, that's insane. But we did it to such a degree that our developers at one stage using AI started running out of work that was no longer in the backlog because current processes in this bureaucracy and methodologies were too slow. So we had a bottleneck with regards to the requirements and the design to get to the developers. And that's how we ended up implementing XP and TDD. We literally did the designs after we did the development. We tested it and we developed it in one shot. Within a 2-week period, we would land insane stuff that was really, really complex. And then we will do the design. It's just incredible. You should look up TDD if you haven't got that experience. It's an insane methodology. So we need to work faster. And we started to use AI for ideas, planning, design, but we still ended up with this whole momentum thing being broken by safe methodology. And we ended up getting dispensation. So we didn't have to go through that process because my teams was planning their work down to an hourly level, committed their work, and will have a delivery of at least 80% of the committed work. And they do all that planning for 3 months in an hour's time. It would take them longer to document it in Jira than it would take them to do the actual planning. But the bureaucracy was the real problem. I mean, if you look at the video, it's insane what is already existing. And we're still doing all these things the old way and expecting to stay competitive. It's insane. It's insane. So I want to, so AI and humans, we are the bottlenecks. And it's very important to note that, because if you take a company like SpaceX or the Elon Musk companies, they innovate literally from innovation, from conceptualizing the idea up to the point in the production release, 2 days. In the same day, can be in hours. It's just moving at insane speeds. So whoever is picking up on the first methodology that is that fast will, with the help of AI, out-innovate any competitors. But what's important here is to constantly come back to the human element, because that's where our problem lies. As I explained in the session before, there's certain things AI cannot do and will never be able to do. I want to just repeat a few things. Emotional depth and empathy. It's something we've got that AI don't have. Moral and ethic reasoning. We have it. AI needs to be programmed in it, but it doesn't have it. But yes, a big thing, creativity and original thought. I don't know how many of you guys have ever planned a project where when you plan the project, it never pans out the way you planned it. There's always some interesting tweak that happens somewhere. It changes the whole context of the project. Not all days, we would stop it, raise an issue, ask for a change request. A month later, you got your project back to green, and boom, there you go again. And you like struggle with your little trying to get things done. Now, what I'm suggesting is we are creative. We have original thoughts. Why don't we just tap into that human element, use AI, and get going immediately? Why do you have to go all these difficult, time-wasting routes? And we're going to have an interesting session around meetings and artifacts that I want to talk to you about. Right, so now that we understand the benefits that AI can bring, and you've heard all these speeches about the way that we do things or used to do things, and you heard how I did it with my team, you'll understand what comes next. Because one of the things that I'm so frustrated about it is every day I come onto LinkedIn, there's somebody having a debate about which methodology is the best. Oh, Safe is this bad, and Scrum is awesome, and Scrum Master is no longer needed. And all of this nonsense is being discussed, and actually it's unimportant. Are we really competing with the existing methodologies we're using? Are we in a space where our existing systems is fast and efficient enough. And when I say systems, I mean the system of working, not a physical system. Are we as the humans the bottleneck? Because AI is now basically waiting for us. And do you think all of this works? Do you think it's sustainable? With the previous context and questions in place, let's circle back to how we do things now. You see, the moment we are focused on all the wrong things, we just look at stuff that's nonsense, roles and methodologies and stuff like that. There's a reason we're looking at it like that. We're living in a bureaucracy where a lot of reputational damage can be done, and our executives have the greatest risk. So read my book on that, so you understand why the bureaucracy is a really, really important thing. But it will also help you to solve it, because it's not right. It shouldn't stay like it is at the moment. It has to change, because you're increasing the risk of your business no longer existing within the next 5 to 10 years. I'm not talking 50 years from now. 5 to 10 years, if you don't change the way you're doing things, you're dead. I'm supporting a method agnostic environment. A PMO that is built method specific is a failure. And worst of all of them is hybrid methods. All hybrid methods is basically a clever way of waterfall. It's just trying to sound agile. It's just trying to sound lean, but it's still waterfall. It breaks any benefits that you would get from a lean or an agile type of methodology. The best way of doing things is designing a PMO around the minimum needs for governance. That PMO should not dictate what methodologies to use, but rather focus on what is the minimum needs from a governance perspective. And then put these methods in a toolbox, a virtual toolbox, and give it to a person doing the job. And they can then decide which one they want to use. You can give a mechanic a pair of pliers and ask him to service a car. It will take him a very long time, and he might even succeed 20% of the time, like we do with projects, damaging half of the parts, trying to fix this car and service it with a pair of pliers, and then probably use blue wire to fasten a few things because he broke off a few nuts and bolts. Or you can give that mechanic a proper toolbox with all the tools he might possibly need, including the latest and greatest tools on the market as they get released. I think that sounds like a better idea. And that's what project methodologies are. It's part of the tool sets that we use to deliver projects. Why are we putting it in a box? Why are we saying you can do it either waterfall or agile or hybrid, and that's it? Why do we say put you in a safe box? And guys, honestly, SAFE's a very complicated project management methodology. It's not a framework. It has fantastic methodologies inside it that it's using, other methodologies like Scrum, like Lean, all of those methodologies. That's fantastic. So it's absolutely worthwhile looking into SAFE. But SAFE, the framework, is a methodology. It's really, really constrained. Right. In front of you, you see more or less how we think innovation works. You do a strategy, you do a current state, future state, a gap analysis, business case. Then you do your project time, cost, and the scope. Your requirements is documented in detail. You do a design, you do development, you test it, you deploy it. Then you've got a 30-day project closure, and boom, Bob's your uncle. Sign it off, project's done, etc. That's this beautiful picture we've got, this little tortoise walking on this highway with all these different streams of things happening. Projects are unpredictable. It's never a straight highway. completing it within time, cost, and scope. I always smile when I see that on CVs. And I wonder how many change requests it took to make that claim. Because as long as that project is green, it's within time, within cost, and within scope, right? However, with the state of AI and the speed at which innovation is happening, organizations need to look at better ways to do things. You can't walk at the speed of a tortoise and pull it into your shell the moment an issue arises. Issue is raised, change request, wait for it to be resolved, and then out of your little shell and walk forward again. Your business will not compete, and it will definitely not survive the next 5 years. Old methods like Prince2, STLC Safe, etc., they're really heavy on artifacts, meetings, and many roles to get jobs done. The approach of all these methodologies is to ensure we manage risk as if we can manage it. It's like pushing water, managing risk. That's literally how it is. But the reality is, it is increasing risk because it's pretending that we're moving slow with a method and it's safer. It's not. In fact, if you go and look at the real world implementation of these methodologies, their intent is simply to evidence failure, blame it on someone or something, and not to ensure delivery is done as best and economical as possible. Definitely. The truth about scaled and agile and hybrid, you look at those roads there, you're from Europe, John, you probably have driven on one or two of these roads because most of them come from Europe. It's insane. That's exactly how a project looks like. It's exactly what agile projects look like. Now, if we look at this one, you've got a strategy, current state, future state, gap analysis, business case. If you think that's not in agile, you're making a mistake. So you still have development, etc. But now there's a different thing happening. You get to testing, and then there's issues. Or the product owner comes, oh, can you add this to the code, please? And boom, yeah, it's back into the backlog. Poof. Then it circles back to design, develop, test, etc. Or it gets deployed, and then you pick up issues. Now there's a problem. Okay, so this happens a lot, and now you're basically running back. So I want to ask you, have you ever heard of the guy that innovated a candle into an electric light? Or the guy that innovated a shoe into a bicycle? Or maybe the guy that invented the ice machine from an ice cutting saw? We come back to our previous example. Neither have I. Innovation often makes no sense as well. You can be busy inventing a stronger adhesive for the aerospace industry, fail at it, and invent a post-it note. It's unpredictable. But here's what makes it special. It's done by crazy people. It's people that solves problems, that can deal with these different highways, and can manage these changes that's constantly happen. Brave people that are willing to take the risks and say something that might make them sound insane and stand out from the rest. Do you think that ideas should sit within a box of everything? I'm just dropping it down here, out there. You build it, you run it. I don't know if that sounds familiar. You build it, you run it. Candle, electric light, just throwing it out there. Innovation should be open to everybody. I worked at an organization just five and a half years ago where we did have the ability to implement innovation in a totally different way. And it was a bank. And I could literally walk out of the meeting, go to the dev manager and say, I want this in a week's time. And he will ask me how important it is. I'll say it's very important because I wouldn't say do this, it wasn't. And 2-3 days later, he'll bring me the product. It's done. It's sitting in a QA environment, dev environment. It's done. In that case, we out-innovated a large telecoms company, actually the biggest one in South Africa. We out-innovated them. They were still stuck in approval mode to get stuff approved. So they didn't even have the requirements documented, no designs done, and we already had the software working in there. And that was before our next meeting with them. Okay, I just thought I'd throw that out there. Okay, so there are two things that makes project management work in the eye of the corporate bureaucracy. There's also a reason management is called overhead, and I'm talking management people like myself. Those are meetings and artifacts. Let me discuss those a little. I did mention it. Let me discuss it quickly. In 2012, I worked in one of the banks in South Africa, a bank in the middle of Joburg. It had an organizational structure of 14 levels deep and a spread of about 8 and up to 12 in some cases per structure level. So you had 14 structure levels deep, and the width was between 8 and 12. So under the CEO in that case, he had 14 executives reporting directly to him, and then it would go down with the levels of the varying of 8 up to the point of 14. It was insane, to say the least. Okay, and change management, yeah, total nightmare. So for me to give you an idea of the impact of what meetings on an organization can have, I want to share with you an organizational structure that's not 14D, but just 5, and not 8 to 14 wide, but just 5 wide. So it's 5 by 5. Just want to give you an idea. Let's say the CEO calls a status meeting with these 5 execs that report to him. The 5 execs then have to inform the 5 divisional executives that report to them that the CEO, he needs a status report. Those individual 5 divisional executives, they then call their 5 portfolio managers, that's individually 5, into a meeting to inform them that the CEO needs a status update. They then call the program managers in a meeting to inform them that the CEO needs a status update. And I'm just down to program manager level. What just happened was 781 people sat in a meeting for an hour to hear that they have to prepare a status report. That's just to hear it. And it's not a 15-minute quick thing, hey, we need a status report. It's a detailed thing. Okay? 781 hours at a low rate of $50 per hour, and you spend $40,000 just to inform down to program manager level everybody that the CEO needs a status update. This was just the beginning, because this request just triggered many meetings with the execution staff, talking the developers, the analysts, the QA specialists, the architects, etc. And the next thing you know is the feedback meetings are out. Okay, now I want feedback. The portfolio manager calls for a meeting to go through all the packs that's now prepared. And that took 700 people each, 4 hours to prepare. And then they want to change things before it gets presented to the divisional executives, so it gets sent back. They then have meetings with their divisional execs, who of course also want a few changes on those packs and refinements. And you can already see the impact this one innocent status update meeting had. It was a simple request. This is the mindset of management and control. And if you are trying to make the calculations at $50 an hour, like I did before, I can tell you now it works out at around $470,000 that was spent for a status update. How many management do you know that only earn $50 an hour, by the way? By simply using a tool like Jira correctly, and with maturity in your leadership, none of these meetings would have been required. By simply changing a culture, none of these meetings would be required. An entrepreneurial culture would not need these senseless, inefficient talking sessions. So that was a fictional status meeting that I just used it as an example, but let's talk about artifacts. Because artifacts is a trigger of a lot of meetings. Let's talk about what managers used to do in the old project days: documentation, meetings, reports, communication, trade logs. And by the way, I do trade, I don't do raid. Constraints, risks, assumptions, issues, and dependencies. The constraints one is one that needs to be there. And many other administrative tasks. That's what managers did, project managers. But who gets called into those meetings? It's the superstars, the celebrities, the guys that actually does the work. They now need to have meetings with the managers. Oh, and each of these meetings was not part of the original project plan, by the way. So with the original plan, which stated 80% of the day was planned for real work, after the project started, only 20% was used for real work. The rest of the time was spent on meetings and doing other stuff to help management with their reporting. Still think that having a detailed plan made sense? Do you think this way working is helpful and gets stuff done? And now do you think the way of working like that is managing risk, or does it increase risk? Is this kind of system workable for the future? And how do we change it? So let's talk about risk and how it's managed. In our research, we found that the majority of issues that was blamed for project failure was the following: lack of planning. So lack of planning always came with a solution, and that was called improve your governance, ensure planning is done properly by adding more management and control. The real root cause for this, of course, was unrealistic deadlines that was caused by the way that we did planning. As I mentioned before, you had two developers, one senior, other one is also senior, but this one codes the same code in 1 hour and this one does it in 8. So you already have a 70% discrepancy. But in the way we did project management before, we had a business case that was approved with a plan before we even had the team assembled. No person can plan for it, no matter how senior or experienced they are. The solution, the actual one, is plan just enough to enable the real experts to plan the detailed work. So if you're in management and the strategy that's coming from the top, it gives you direction to what needs to happen. You just say, I want this chunk of work done. They will do the detailed work, the people that's actually going to do the work. And you know what? Suddenly your plan looks better because now it's accurate. But you also have the commitment from your team because they made that plan. They are committed and they will work 20 hours if it must a day to get it done because they know that was their contribution and their commitment. The other one was changes in scope and requirement would happen. And you know the ironic thing that I just want to tell you a little tale. When I worked at a certain bank, I used to have a project diary. I don't know how many people still use that, where I literally had to document everything that was said in meetings, everything that was claimed in meetings, so I can use it later. Because there was always some turnaround. Because when stuff happens in projects, it happens. Changes happen. And then it was always a finger pointing to figure out who was the guy, who said this, who said that. Again, it's irrelevant. Stuff happened, let's solve it. But the normal blame was given, the normal solution that was given was ensure analysis is done accordingly to a minimum standard. So let's go analyze it more. The real root cause was you cannot plan for individual competence. You don't know how fast people work. That detail will only be revealed during execution. You also can't plan for bad organizational culture. There's no non-transparent reporting. I had it in my last place. The people will massage the reports. to look beautiful, to look better. And before you know it, red project is suddenly green. Everybody else that's affected, or other projects that's affected by that project, has no clue what's waiting for. So there's always something unexpected. What's the real solution? Expect the change in scope to happen. Accept it. It will happen. Rather enable your teams to handle the solutioning of it internally without having to run around for permission to do so. The next one is poor resource planning. The normal solution provided is more analysis and better documentation. The true root cause is resource planning cannot be very difficult, or can be very difficult, as it is impossible to plan for unknown stuff, unknown competence or individual quality. What's the solution? Dedicated teams that can mature together, reduce the need for resource planning significantly. Next one, lack of communication. Something that drives me up the walls. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Racy. You shouldn't care who's responsible and who's accountable and who must. Why is that important? Normal solution that's given for this is more reporting, improved your cycle of status meetings. So up your meetings, up your reporting, what do you get? More $40,000 talking sessions where your staff is doing no work. So it's just increasing the problem. It's not solving it. What's the real root cause? Organizational and management culture often leads to sanitization of the massaging of the information, which leads to a lack of transparency. Poor implementation of software tools leads to manual reporting, making it possible to report non-transparently. That's basically stating to be dishonest, allowing dishonesty. What's the solution? Introduce software tools that enabling automation and transparent reporting. Next one is lack of monitoring control. The normal solution here is ensure more oversight, more competent managers. The real root cause is there's already too many managers, too much control leads to robotic state, which leads to disconnection of management and more red tape. So your staff becomes robotic. They're not thinking for themselves. And guess who's the experts? Not the boss. It's the people that's doing the job. So what's the solution? Move over to a structure that's introducing roles instead of position. You've got a role to play, regardless of what your position is. It's irrelevant. You've got a role to play. And the manager's role is to actually make sure that his team is enabled. If there's anything that's wasting their time, pick it up, go and sort it out, get them enabled. Make sure they're able to do the job. But next one is poor stakeholder management. I hate that word. The solution they give for that is introduce meetings to inform your stakeholders and to introduce more stakeholders. So get them involved in more meetings. Talk. What's the real root cause here? Stakeholders need to be reduced by a flattened organizational structure. And that's where roles come in. You can have your seniority in terms of what your income is and what your power levels are, but your organizational structure in terms of roles need to collapse. That makes sure that your responsibility is sitting with individuals. It's no longer rolling up to some manager. When we look at the way that risk was reduced in the past, you will immediately pick up. It's actually done the exact opposite. It's increased risk. But what it did was it put the excuses in place of why we failed. I'm not on a soapbox. I'm trying to explain to you why project methodologies and PMOs operate the way they do, because that's why agile adoption is failing in organizations. The reason for it is, if I can explain why we failed, remember, only 20% of digital projects succeed. But I made a commitment to the board or to my executive, depending on how level the level of that project, that I will spend only 1 billion on this project, but now we're standing at 5. I need to be able to explain that. And that drives certain behavior. It drives behavior downward in the organization where people need to constantly explain. So the whole problem now is the focus is no longer succeeding. The focus is explaining when we fail. And that is a problem. It's increasing risk and it's making sure you fail more. The problem with that is in the future that we are sitting in right now, that will no longer work. It won't. Your business will not succeed. There's organizations out there that's innovating at the speed of lightning. And if you want to stick to your excuse management project methodologies, you're going to fail. Okay, moving on. Sorry for that soapbox moment. I want to tell you about the 3 sisters of delivery. And one of them, rhythm, is called cadence. Now, I think it's a word you hear often when management talk. Management used to pick up all these lingo. And cadence is rhythm. I want to talk about these 3. And the first one I want to talk about is rhythm. The rhythm is very important because rhythm means it happens at specific intervals. How does planning work in the methodology that I've used in the past 7 years? First of all, your executive do the strategy plan. The strategy, organizational strategy, is normally about a 3-year-long strategy. In some organizations, it's 100 years. I actually support that idea better. But the strategy gives you a good idea of what the organization wants to do in the next 3 years. So that gives you a mandate to go and extract strategic goals, which is your next level of planning. Strategic goals are extracted from the strategy by the executive, and then that gets handed over to the portfolio level management. They don't do detailed planning. They just extract it. These are the high-level goals that we want from that strategy to be delivered. Then we've got objectives. Objectives is a quarterly thing. It makes it a much smaller thing, but it's a smaller breakdown of the strategic goals. So your portfolio level management will go and have a look at that and plan it out at a very high level. These are the things we want to do. We normally took about a week, maximum 2 weeks, like in SAFE, similar to SAFE, but this was just the management. And we would then extract all these objectives, and that objectives will then roll down into 2-week sprint goals. But there's a thing that happens with the delivery, daily deliverables, and the sprint goals that I can't really explain it without showing. Now, that normally happens in the training sessions I do, so bear with me, I'm going to try and explain. The objectives gives you a roll-up of the bigger capabilities that you want to build. That can be maybe, I want a calculator that can calculate a bond. We know that objective is probably 3 months for chunk of work, but if we break it down in certain goals, that makes it manageable, and you can eat this bigger elephant in smaller chunks. So the sprint goals is given to the team. The team go away and they go and do daily deliverable planning. The daily deliverable planning works in 3 parts. Wait time. So if I need a meeting with someone and that person is a celebrity, I'm probably going to wait a week or 2. So I already allocate 80 hours. I'm going to wait 80 hours for that guy before I can meet with him and get some requirements or get some clarity on the design or whatever. So I already know that's wait time. I've got keyboard time, which means I'm going to sit and type code, or I'm going to sit and type an artifact, maybe requirements or document stories or whatever. And the other one is activities. So I'm going to have a meeting, or I'm going to have a workshop. We're going to have some brainstorming sessions. Those are the type of hours that you plan. So daily delivery is planned that way. That daily delivery is then brought back to the potluck or the management team to realign their sprint goals. Sprint goals gets documented in Jira. That gets linked to the daily delivery. But what is important is the next part of it, and that's flow. Flow is stories, it's capabilities. It can be, in the old lingo, requirements, functional, non-functional requirements. The problem with flow and with stories is that it probably takes longer than 2 weeks to finish. So within the Jira setup, we configured stories separate to activities. Your story can be anything. It can be build me a login page for my website. And the login page can be simple, it can be a name and a password. But now I can add capabilities there. I've got maybe criteria that I want to add, like the font must be red for this. It must query a database from the government to check the guy's identity. Stuff like that. It can be complicated. It needs integration, interfacing, APIs, or whatever. That's irrelevant. I'm not that clever. I'm stupid. I just know I need a login page. So that's my story. Now it hits a team, and the team sees, okay, this is much more complex. Oh, no, it's simple. We can do it this iteration. That will flow on a Kanban board in Jira. It's linked to all the activities that we just saw in the previous planning session, and that we will see in the next one for momentum. It will be interlinked. What happens now is flowing from feasibility to analysis. So if you see this is a complex page, I probably need my system analyst to look at a few things, or my business analyst to look at a few things, to clarify, to make sure my developer doesn't have to go and battle and run around. Remember, we want to make things easier for the end champion that's developing and the testers. We want to make things easier for them. So if there's analysis needed, go and do it there, but you go and do it per functionality. It's not like the olden days, we build an artifact with this massive document. It's easy. You want this requirement, boom, the requirement moves down the flow, and it can hit the design, it can hit the development, and test automation can be done. We do a lot of test automation when we do XP and TDD. Test automation is an absolute must, but it will take longer than 2 weeks. So you run it in a Kanban board just to track the progress of what that story does. Now, someone sits in a meeting, and managers, we talk a lot. And the boss asks, okay, so where's that little Mickey Mouse thing I wanted on the login screen? Let me just check. Oh, yeah, it's there. We know where it is because it's wrapped. No meetings needed. Old way would have been, I'll find out, call a meeting with the team, and the whole team comes together to find out what's the status on the Mickey Mouse that's on the login screen. But we really look back and we think, yes, we've worked stupidly in the past. Maybe it was just me, I don't know. Then, delivery with momentum. How it works, and I want you to look at these pictures, but the big one I want you to look at is the snowball. The funny thing about deliveries, if you look at ants have this trail that they walk, and they go and pick up the food, take it back to the nest. And you take your finger and you zzz through it. That is what current PI planning sessions in SAFe is. It's that finger that disrupts this flow, disrupts this thing that's happening. The funny thing is, when you do development, and I remember when I did it, was if I'm interrupted, it takes me a long time to just catch up where I was. In some cases, I would forget completely where I was. I had stunning ideas and I forgot it. And that is what you want to avoid. So momentum implies that you leave your team alone and they start doing things faster, 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 faster. It just goes faster. Now add AI to the game, and you suddenly realize, boom, insane. It's actually a lot faster. So momentum is very important when we do delivery. One of the greatest challenges a traditional TPM has, look at that snowball. And safe sits with the same problem, is it disrupts people that's doing actual work. I always mention that managers don't do actual work. And it sounds probably, yeah, but I'm a manager, so I can say, no, it's the same thing. But part of the three sisters of delivery is that this is a sum of abilities. To get momentum running, we need to step away from disrupting people. People need to constantly work out how they will deal with changes. And you know what? We had 90% accuracy on our plan because my team was able to, within our plan, a 3-month period of work, down to our level. And they normally hit a 90% mark on their success. I was dumbfounded. I mean, that was just amazing. I just thought I'd share that. This really works, this whole three sisters thing. All right, moving on. The new way of working is really great. And we're certain that we've really achieved a lot of good results. But it requires transparency. And that is a complicated thing in a bureaucracy where perception management is key, where we can massage reports, etc. But it requires management to be unemotional about things. To see visually that your developer is now in stress mode because he just broke something. We've got a severity and it broke. It doesn't mean you now need to go and help by screaming at the person. It's not helping. The expert's already there. You want to go and find out, what help can I give you? Do you need an expert in this? Is there somebody else that can help you? I can unlock anything for you. That's the role that management need to do. Not go and scream and shout and call meetings and we need now to solve this, which is faster, which is best. That's important. You need to be involved. I don't say that. You don't need to be involved. Yes, you do. But it doesn't mean you need to interrupt people. All right. Part of this key is when you look at the picture, is you need to have a good tool. In my case, I'm unfortunately in South Africa where we use a lot of Jira. Jira is a big deal. Monday.com, the other tools that you get uh, is more an advert that you find on YouTube. It's not something that we really use. People basically are followers in South Africa. So very much the software we use, but that's what you use for everything. It reduces your meetings. It ensures transparency. It makes sure that anybody that's impacted by issues on your project is aware without you having to call meetings with them. I have an obsession that meetings is wasted time. Right. So if you were falling asleep and the session was getting boring, you've been very happy to know that we're very close to the end now. I want you, in summary, I would like to bring the entire recipe together into a list of things we need to ensure from our business side that we survive for the next years, 10 years, that needs to happen. So many times we get trained and certified in frameworks and methodologies, but we never get taught how it works, why it works, how do key elements that make these methodologies work actually fit in together. People go onto a training session, they get the theory, but they're not really explained to why did we discover Scrum works well? Why did we put this process in there and this process in? Is a retro even important? And then people have debates on LinkedIn about it. So to enable all of this, you need a few core values in place. You need an organizational structure that encourages corporate entrepreneurship and innovation. You need an organizational culture that does that, that's obsessed with reducing any wasteful events that you have. Where leadership is not appointed, it's earned. It's like water. When you throw water in a jug, the form of the jug, the water will take that form. That's how leadership works as well. If there's space, it just gets filled by the right person. Understand the EQ journey, the differences between accountability and responsibility, and why everybody wants to have both of those. The key to an entrepreneurial organization is that it constantly innovates focus and self-responsibility. The key to leadership, and a tough one to activate, but not an easy one to activate, is that you need to earn that respect, that leadership. And the only way to do that is by trust. You need to activate trust in your organization. How do you activate trust? By being a true leader. Narcissistic leadership doesn't work. It makes people robotic. They don't think anymore for themselves. They behave differently. The massage reports say you don't get the real truth. We need to trust each other. You need to also engage with success principles. You need to really install that in your organization. You know how to fail responsibly. Follow a process of learning and understanding in practice. Innovation should be executed iteratively, efficiently, and in the smartest possible way. When creating new stuff, ensure delivery is done in a small reusable capability. You know, like the old source code that you would reuse again. Break it down in small chunks and you can reuse it again. Or if you want to innovate it, it's just a small thing you're going to innovate again. Entinology also uses a Fortify framework, and the Fortify framework is a step up from a maturity framework. So what it does is it identifies in your team, through your team, their honesty, their approach. What is it that we need to go and develop next? It's an awesome system. The Fortify framework really, really works. And another thing I want to just talk about is passion. You know, I worked in my last stint in a place where I was absolutely horrified to go to work. We had a very, very toxic leadership. And what I must tell you, the most difficult thing for me was to behave like a salesman. You know, the salesman that gets 9 no's and 1 yes? He parks his car in front of the next sale and he just tells himself in the rearview mirror, I'm awesome. I can do this. I will win. I had to go like that in the parking area, go to the office and inspire my team. I constantly had to activate the passion in them because we had leaders above me that was really, really bad, poisonous people that took the life out of them. And yeah, we need to activate that passion. And there's a whole bunch of principles of how you do that. We need to install entrepreneurial principles in our teams, and we need to enable our teams by providing them with the tools they need, any tool they desire. And finally, AI is our friend. AI is our buddy. We need to activate AI. Right. Guys, that's it. I don't know. Is there any questions?
Hi, Roloff. It's John.
Hi, John. Oh,
No, not a lot of question because I already read a lot and listen a lot. I have the same way of thinking. Just some comments. All you say here is relevant. I'm glad to see that it's not only in France that the people are doing a lot of meeting are losing money by how can I say that? Sorry, I'm French for the other people. Sorry. uh, they the staff not some bad people but some greedy people who are just collecting all the money, all the project money, and there is where the money is lost. And we have to focus on what you say uh, on on the innovation and
Entrepreneurial.
try
Yeah.
to uh, try to keep a straight line to that uh, and not uh, sorry, I lose my word.
No
um,
problem. So I think
uh,
what you're trying to say is that you've got leadership that's more chasing money and
yeah,
focused around their own needs, uh, selfish needs, opposed to enabling the teams. The problem with that is it will soon and very soon bite them
yeah,
because things have changed. In the old days, about a year ago, that was still fine. We could, as a leadership, be greedy and just push the people to the limits. That will work fine. However, that's now changed with the latest chat GPT um, and the latest co-pilots. There's several of them, by the way, and other AI tools that's coming out. If you don't get on board very quickly with entrepreneurship, because that's the only place a human has any playing field left, is entrepreneurship and innovation, and of course leadership. Those three. AI is taking everything else. It's not funny. It's serious. But that space leaves with a hell of a lot of vacuum at the moment. But in the next year to 5 years, you're going to see a lot of companies going out of business because of leadership like that. So all you basically, what I'm trying to achieve here is getting the voice out there to inform people, that they need to start changing their behavior. And it's very difficult. It's a hard message to land, especially with executives. But it is vital that they get that.
I fully agree. I'm living this now at my company. Today, I refuse a job because they asked me to be a TPM, and I say no because they use hybrid solutions, and I don't want to do that because I don't want to spend my time in meetings, and I want to produce something. Don't want to spend my time making PowerPoints and uh, done diagram and everything like that. I don't want to. I don't want to do that. And by refusing this job, the the recruiter says me, "Oh, you're honest, yeah," and I'm being honest with you, with full transparency. I don't want to do that, and then he keep my CV next to him, and maybe to get another job for me.
Mm.
And this is where I join you on the trust. The trust is earned by the honesty, on my guess. So so this is one thing about this, and also the AI will not replace us. Or this is
No,
the Skynet view.
no, I think
The
we had
yeah.
a company in Europe now in a week or 2 weeks ago that the CEO came out with uh, headcount that they're reducing. And you're going to get that everywhere because they're seeing an opportunity. I mean, the CEO's income is directly linked to whatever cost he can save in uh, the short period. All right. So for the next contract period for himself. And if he can reduce headcount and explain that he's given it to AI to do, it's going to work. The problem is your bottleneck will come in with innovation because AI can do your tedious jobs, can do anything that can automate with data. But what it cannot do is where there's creativity needed. So you still need people, but the people need the knowledge and experience that when they use the AI, they can see when they're messing up stuff. And what they're going to get now is they're going to get rid of those experienced people the sharp guys that knows and understand how AI will work in future and where the bottleneck will be in pushing work out to innovate, they're going to pick those experienced people up and get them to work for them. So that CEO is going to, within 2 or 3 years, sit with a hell of a big problem because all his experience is gone.
Yes,
So he can
fully
reduce
agree.
headcount, he can have fun and games with it. It's a short-term success. Then it's a hell to pay.
I agree.
Thank you, John. I must appreciate the fact that you're French and you gave English a go. Thank you very much, John. Okay, guys, I think we've reached way beyond our time. I really apologize for going over the time. It was my first ever webinar. I really want you to just do me a favor and look in the chat, ruleofamilion.com review. Please give me an honest review. If you see or saw anything that you feel I need to look at and improve, perhaps on the storylines or anything like that, please throw it my way. I've got the maturity, I've got the self-esteem to look at it and see the best in it.